So we're finally towards the end. The Eagle Scout. For many people, it is the end of the road in your time at scouting because you get to the Eagle Scout. You're like almost 18 years old, and so a lot of people are considered midnight Eagles because they're finishing, just maybe a week or a few days before their 18th birthday. But really, being an Eagle Scout is a lifelong commitment. It's really just the beginning of your journey and your entrance into a completely different community, a community of people who have all the same skills, many times the same values and morals that you do because they've gone through the scouting trail from the egg to the eagle. They've completed every single requirement in some capacity. Requirements tend to change, but when the requirements do change, they still represent the same kind of ideals of scouting and the principles of scouting. They've completed many of the same merit badges. They've held many of the similar leadership positions, and they've committed to a life of owning the principles of scouting. So what you have to do to be an Eagle Scout, as mentioned above, is you have to get 21 total merit badges. They added cooking as a required one when I was gone, and I earned pretty much all of the ones listed, except for the cycling merit badge. That was the one that got away towards the end. After a couple of years of scouting and after Eagle, I kind of went away, and we'll discuss that a bit later. But I had one requirement left for cycling. It was the 50-mile ride. I don't know why I never finished it. I probably should have just finished it, but I didn't. But in addition to the merit badges, you also have to go through and do a leadership project. A leadership position and a service project. For my leadership position, I was what they call a den chief. I was a scout who would go to the monthly Cub Scout meetings and help out the Cub Master there, and I also helped organize and work with the Webelos too, which is the Cub Scout unit right before Boy Scouts. So I would help them work on their own requirements for advancement, their own little system, the Arrow of Light, which is the Cub Scout version, kind of the Eagle Scout. And kind of really get them prepared and hyped up to be part of the Boy Scouts, and give whoever the den leader was, which is usually an adult, a little bit of reprieve since they have help from a Boy Scout. So that's what I did for my service project, or for my service position. It was a position that had only been filled once before in our troop. It's not a very popular position, just because you have to go and work with the younger kids, and you also have to go to the Cub Scout meetings in addition to your own patrol meetings, your own troop meetings, leadership meetings. So you're busy. You're quite busy when you do that. And I ended up doing it for about 3 years. I kind of stopped doing scouting when I was like 17. So from 14 to 17, I was a den chief. Then for my service project, what I did was I raised quite a bit of money to replace some benches at a local elementary school that they were rotting and you couldn't sit on them anymore. It was right by where students would wait for the bus to pick them up and for their parents to pick them up. It was in a poorer community, so they didn't have the money to fix the benches. And I also replaced. There was like a little garden right nearby. That was kind of all destroyed and hadn't been kept up. So what we did was I gathered a team of scouts to help me out with this. I planned out a project, got the dimensions for the bench, figured out what type of wood to use, what type of water seal to use, and also figure out what kind of soil to use, what kind of plants to plant in that soil. We went ahead and we got permission from the school board to fix those issues. We had to get permission from the local, one of like the local governments, basically just to get a permit to build there. We got the equipment donated by a local hardware store. Lowe's donated all of the lumber. We got the soil donated from another local company. Pretty much everything was 100% was made off of 100% from donations from the local community. So I had to meet with lots of business owners and convince them why they should entrust a 15-year-old boy with couple a couple 100 pounds of soil pretty much and plants, and ensure that this is going to be a project that gets done and gets done well, why the project was necessary. Once I had all the donations and the planning, that had been about 100 hours already of work on my end. I then had to get approval by the Eagle Board, which is a group of committee members from around the district and the council, and I had to present them my plan, why I propose my solutions, where I gotten all the funding, and go through pretty much every step of the project up until then. And then once I got the green light, I could go ahead and build the benches and replace the benches, as well as replace the garden area around the area around the school. So, I mean, if I hadn't gotten approval from the Eagle Board, then I just would have gone ahead and done the project anyways, because at that point we've got everything except for the building. Really, it was mostly the planning was the longest part. I spent about 100 hours planning, like I said, and then also probably only took 25 hours to actually build and replace the benches and the garden area. It took, I think, one day to actually do only. No, it was like Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, 2 or 3 days, I think, to actually get it, because we had to come back and apply the water seal a couple times. I had to watch the weather for doing the gardening section. But I went back over the week we had off here, and I got to go back, not only look at a lot of my Boy Scout stuff, but I went back and looked at my project, and the benches were still there. They still looked great since we used high quality material. The garden still looks great. They have new plants there, but the soil is still high quality, and it looks like pretty much everything has remained kind of the same since we built it, and it doesn't look run down or dangerous like it did before. The last thing I want to talk really about is what happens after your Eagle. My Eagle Board was kind of, how do I say it? I guess underwhelming. Like I mentioned in an earlier video, the Star Board was actually the hardest one I had ever done. The Eagle Board was really more about you and your personal character to make sure your Eagle material, because as my dad always liked to say, being an Eagle Scout's kind of like a double-edged sword. You carry some weight and authority with you, with the title, but also people are watching you, are watching you at that point. When you mess up, or when you do something stupid, or if you commit a crime, that not only reflects upon you, but it reflects upon the greater community of Eagle Scouts. I ended up passing my board in the first try. It was honestly one of the easier boards I'd ever done. It was because, like I said, it was mostly just about answering personal questions and about your character. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is what happens after your Eagle. Many people get their Eagle and then they're gone. Or they get their Eagle and they're 18, so they can't be part of Scouting. But because I got my Eagle when I was 15, I was still around for another 3 years, but that ended up really only being about 2. They have these extra additions that you can do that are like Eagle Palms. They're not a rank, they're just a recognition that you've had continued leadership and activity in your troop, and that you've done like 5 or 6 merit badges. And they go in the order of Bronze Palm, Gold Palm, Silver Palm, and that's in the traditional military order: bronze, gold, silver. I ended up getting, I think, 2 of each over my remaining 2 years, which was, the max you can get is 3, and I probably could have gotten the 3 and would have gotten the 3 if I'd stuck with it, but being an Eagle Scout, it gives you some clout with people, and some people it just puts a target on your back. I spent a lot more time being involved in the troop, helping out with younger kids. Continued to be the den chief, but my peers, people who were as old, who were in a little bit older than me, who were still working on trying to get their eagle, even though they were older. People who were in my, I guess, generation of scouting, they were doing the same thing. There was a lot of negativity that I had gotten it so young. A lot of people thought that, I didn't, again, that I didn't deserve it or that I cheated some way. I just heard these nasty things, and really, it's not that I wanted respect for getting the eagle, but the older I got, the more I thought this is just toxic. This is just not for me. I don't want to come. This is something I love, and I'm just being, berated for doing something that I like and doing it well. And eventually, it just broke me. I mean, my parents were like, "Are you going to go to scouting tonight?" And the more and more often became, "No, I'm going to go do something else with my friends. I don't want to go there." I still went. I was still very involved with helping out at the Cub Scout level, but I started just appearing fewer and fewer times, and then eventually I just stopped coming altogether. And I don't remember exactly when. It was around the time I was 17, so I only had a year left, but it just really phased out gradually. And so, I mean, I can't put like a finger on it, like a date, but I think the biggest reason why I ended up leaving was just the environment there was not good, which sucks. I really enjoyed doing scouting, and I really enjoyed completing merit badges and being involved in helping other people and with their service projects, helping out, with the new kids so that they can learn the same skills I learned. But I mean, it just finally kept all the crap, I just kept taking. Couldn't put up with it anymore. I was doing really well in speech and debate. It was kind of starting to consume my life at that point, high school, and then I started to think more about college. And so those took a far greater precedent over scouting, which I kind of regret not doing my last year of scouting, since I mean, I could go back, I could volunteer, but at that point I'm an adult leader. It's not the same. It can never be the same. So now all I'm left with are the memories of being a scout and being an eagle. But I do have something new, I guess, or something that I can continue to be a part of, and that's being a part of the Eagle Scout community. I've met a few Eagle Scouts just on random trips and the most random places, and it's just an instant conversation starter. Anyone who's actually a part of scouting, it's an instant conversation starter. And these are conversations that last for well over an hour with perfect strangers as you're bonding over scouting. And as I've showcased kind of throughout the project, it's a long lineage of people who have done very successful things. So there's still kind of the weight of being an eagle, and there's these expectations that I feel like I have to, not that I have to, but that I should and that I want to surpass, much like I did with scouting. I wanted to get to that eagle, and I didn't want to do it by the time I was 18. I wanted to do it young so I could continue on with scouting, so I could get as much as it had to offer. In many ways, I think that's one of the best things scouting taught me, is that I should have that approach with everything in life. And if I do, I can be successful because I can put in the work, as long as I'm following something that's passionate to me and that I enjoy doing. I don't know if I'll ever, I guess, go back to scouting. I'd like to eventually maybe get involved with the troop, but being on mock trial, doing school, studying for the LSAT, preparing for law school, and also helping coach the high school debate team, it takes up quite a bit of time that I just don't have, unfortunately, to give back to scouting currently. But maybe one day I'll return and try and help out and volunteer and really get back into doing something that I used to love so much.